Okay, so I've been thinking about the idea of, well, first of all, I've been building out or refactoring out my project, and I am using, it's a module monolith. So it's a monolith, not a microservice. And so my packages are built around, I think it's called ports, and it's probably something to look into because there's so many different names, but it's a module monolith, and monoliths aren't inherently bad. I mean, they work when you have a simple project. Like, I'm not going to build this project out and start building and managing microservices. I mean, I could if it was purposeful, so not pragmatic. The purpose would be, I guess, to learn and to get my hands dirty. But sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, I think that a module monolith is the answer. So when you look up module monolith, you'll find that there's a difference between, let's say, in a traditional monolith, I guess, a monolith of the old days, and a monolith that has modules. And when you have a monolith that's based around modules, it's kind of like a microservice, but you're not dealing with network calls. So here's the analogy here. So your module monolith, or your monolith would be your one building, and it has all of your departments in it. Okay, that's just gonna be a bigger. So it's going to have your what is my department? So in my library, you have your author department, you have your book department, you have your bookcase department, you have your bookshelf department, you may have your command line prompt department, command line department, and so on and so on. You may have a user department, I don't know, payments department, and what else would you have? List. I don't know what list means. So this is all your packages or all your services in one house, or one building. You can think of it like a building with windows, and each window is a department, or what you'd call a module. With an arrow, you call it modules. Hence the term module monolith. Right, so it's still a monolith, but we're trying to have it organized. Monolith. Trying to have it organized in ways that make it easy for maintainability and what's the word I'm looking for? High cohesion, low coupling. So yeah, so if you think of a microservice though, these would be in different buildings, and so you have to manage those over a network. Look at that, it's like different AWS bills. You got to deal with monitoring and all that other fun stuff, right? That you deal with microservice. It brings a whole nother problem. I mean, yeah, problems, but what do we do about it? So it's trade-offs, I guess. That's what I'm saying, trade-offs. So that's the game we're in. We're in a game of trade-offs, and you got to know the trade-offs and what's practical, what's pragmatic, what do you need, and so on and so on. I don't want to keep doing it for everyone. AuthorService. Okay. Cool. So then all of these are talking over API calls and networks and blah blah blah. And this would be a monolith over here. So going back to your micro or your module monolith, I guess the whole point that I was coming up with was how do you manage communication between these modules? So they need to have, I think the word is boundary context, a tight boundary context. Context, is that the word I'm looking for? Well, they need to interface to talk to each other. So they can't talk to each other directly. You need an interface, or contract / interface to communicate between modules. Okay, what was the point? What was I doing? I guess I'm just brain dumping right now. It started out because I was trying to figure out, so that when I'm talking about this contractor interface, one of those contractor interface could be a data transfer object. And so if a book needed an author has entities, right? So an author has a author entity. It's an author entity, and it may also have just depending on mine in particular, has an author domain object. Just because I was playing with some stuff, different types of, I guess, architecture, design patterns, I don't know what to call it. So I have entities and domain objects right now in each one of my modules, and my entities just deal with persistent stuff, and then domain object is everything else, deals with the business logic. Actually, do that here. Persistent database, and then this one was dealing with my business logic. But each one is going to have, for my case anyway, each module is going to have an entity, a domain object. And if you go in there, so let's go to author. Again, here's the monolith. Everyone's in the same big building. And here are the window, well, yeah, here are the windows. And so if you look at the author window, it's going to have an entity, and well, it's going to have, the domain is the domain object, and then when you go to infrastructure, you have your entity here, and that's the database or the JPA or whatever entity. And right now, this doesn't have any logic, so this would technically just be called an anemic, I think anemic domain model or anemic model, because I don't have anything, any business logic here. It should have some business logic here, but I just haven't put anything there. So this probably matches closely to the DTO. I don't know. Well, yeah, this is author ID, first name, last name. Of course, you need those. And then you just have your getters and setters. This in the DTO is the exact same thing. But I guess where I was getting at is I don't want to pass an author entity to a book. A book says, hey, I'm going to need this author. Whatever. That's what you want to use. Book can't just take author entity or author domain object and like, oh, here you go. It's like, no, you can't talk directly to the author. You can think of author as like the, well, how do I explain this one? It needs that interface. And this interface is the way we're going to get that entity or get that data. So you have your domain object, and so you're going to also have your domain transfer object. And what this is going to do is allow you to transfer data between modules. That word is going to strangle me. Module, or is it module? We'll go with that, module. So your author domain object and your domain transfer object. So your domain transfer object is the contract that the book is going to use. So the book is going to say, hey, I want an author. Author's not going to send you, and it's typically, let's do this guy here, AuthorService. AuthorService works for the in the author building. So AuthorService is not going to give you an author entity or an author domain object, but it will give you an author DTO, and that's going to be the contract or interface, that DTO, or in that, yeah. So you requested, this is what I'm going to give you, an author DTO. You're not going to get an author entity. You're not going to get a domain object. You're going to get a transfer object, just the data, skeleton of the data that I'm sending. And so, and that's what AuthorService is going to do. But here's another thing. The book is not going to talk directly to the AuthorService. AuthorService doesn't work for the book. That's not how that works. Author works in this building. Book can't just come and say, hey, author, I need you to do something. That's just like somebody at your job in a different department who's not your boss trying to tell you to work on a project. It's like, hey, I got this project for you. Can you do it? And you're like, I don't work for you, my guy. So a book can't just go to AuthorService, or shouldn't, because if he does, AuthorService boss is going to be like, yo, what are you doing? I got you working on this project. You can't be going out there working on book projects, and you get in trouble. Not, or could not be a real life story in my professional career. Anyway, so what happens? Author's like, all right, you're not going to get the real me. You're going to get a facade. And so facade, I don't know if that shows up well. So the facade is like the service, but it's an interface. So the facade is going to be an interface or implementation. Well, it's going to be an interface. interface for AuthorService, I want to say, maybe. AuthorService implements facade, AuthorFacade. I want to call AuthorFacade, AuthorFacade sounds fancier. AuthorFacade, AuthorFacade. Anyway, is that even how you spell facade? I'm assuming so. Anyway, make these black. So the AuthorFacade is going to be interface, and then AuthorService is going to implement that AuthorFacade. So then the books, again, it's going to be a contract. Put that over here as well. Or maybe we don't even need that there. This is going to be a contract, and also this is going to be a contract. Make that bold. Then instead of contract here, this is going to go under your architecture, and this is going to go under your domain. Cool. So each one of these has different bosses. I guess I can make this purple too. Bold. Purple and bold. Great. Anyway, so if the book wants an author, or yeah, if a book wants an author, first of all, it can't talk directly to the service. It needs to talk to the facade. So he calls the facade and he's like, hey, can you give me an author? And then the author is like, okay, but it's not going to give you an author entity and not going to give you an author domain. It's going to give you a DTO and just transfer that author data. So DTO is used to, did I write that down? Yeah, transfer data between modules, or transfer object data between modules. Domain object data between modules. Literally data transfer, or domain transfer object, transfer domain object data, domain object between modules. Anyway, okay, that's where this whole thing started. I wanted to kind of visualize the DTO and how that works, because I think in my code I was actually doing data transfer objects between within the same module, and that's kind of ridiculous because I can just use the data transfer. I can just use the domain object if it's within that module, but I was using domain objects, so I think that's what I was doing. I'm going to check now. So it's a book or a bookshelf. If they want author or a book or anything, they'd have to talk to the facade, and the facade would give it a DTO. So if a bookshelf wanted a book and a book wanted an author, that's how that communication would go. But I think I was using DTOs. I think I am mapping an author entity, or an author. Oh, I already have that. I think I'm mapping an author domain object, and then I think I'm mapping a domain object to a DTO and using it within the same module. And it's like, just use the DTO. And I think that's what I did. So that's what I was checking on, because yeah, just use the DTO. And I was working on this last night early in the morning, so I think I made some mistakes. Not even in the author, it's more in the CLI, because I had a lot of dependencies in my CLI folder, or book command. It was book commands. There was so many dependencies. There still is a lot of dependencies. I'm still cleaning this up, but it was a lot of infrastructure dependencies. What I mean by that was not only was this was communicating. So the author was communicating with these other. I mean, the CLI was communicating with these other modules, and it was using things directly. So we'd go into author and just go into the back room and say, hey, give me this entity, and save it to the database. So that's definitely wrong. So it was a lot of that, and I removed that. It took me a while. It was horrible, but I cleaned a lot of that up. But I still have a lot of stuff to clean up here. So like BookService, this is talking directly to BookService, and that's again, it's like book commands going to BookService and saying, hey, I got a job for you, and then BookService should say, hey, you're not my boss, you can't give me jobs. But that's what it's doing. Let's see, BookService. So here it's saying book request DTO, book request. So there's an object, or there's a DTO. Said, hey, I'm requesting this DTO. Can you give it to me? Here's the stuff that you might need. And BookService like, yeah, I got you. It creates a new one. And it's like, BookService, you shouldn't be talking directly to that guy. That's not your boss, man. You should talk to a facade. So that should be book facade or facade. And then create, actually I already have that. Create book from metadata, but I'd have to get the metadata first. I don't have metadata here. what is this? It's addBook. So I don't even need create from metadata. Anyway, create book, and that's what would happen. Create new book. Give it that book request DTO, book facade, create new book, and there's a method in the interface for facade. Create new book, implemented by your BookService, create new book, and create new book is going to take that DTO, validate it, and save it. It doesn't return anything. So going back here to create new book, where's it getting that data from? Up top, addBook. So what this method is doing is creating a book or adding a book. Like these names should be different. It should be, instead of addBook, it should be create new book or something, because it's not even created and it's creating and saving a book. So that's another thing. Like I could probably do that now. This name is not descriptive of the method. So when you talk about clean code, naming is a big thing. And for me, like I wrote this and it's like, I know, I'm looking at it, I know what it does, but me looking at it, future me is gonna look at it and say, okay, add a book. It must already be created. But then you look at it and it's like, well, no, you're actually creating a new book. So instead of add book, I can rename this to something better, would be create new book. But honestly, like what I've been doing lately is just taking this, just for me lately, and it's like working with training wheels, so I don't consider it cheating. But what I do is, let's just go to something like one of the models. Maybe we can go to Claude and say one of my projects that I've been working on, Bibby. So I'm saying, what is a better clean code name for this class? And then explain why. So I give it the code, because I know this is pretty bad. Well, I think it's bad. Claude may say, hey, you know what, this isn't too bad, but I think it's bad. Because just going through it and going through the code, I'm like, okay, I'm creating a new book. Add book, create new book, they're different things, right? If I want to add a book, I'm thinking the book is already created. This says nothing about create. This tells me nothing about I'm saving a book to a database. So I think that's why I think it should be changed. So looking at this code, I'd recommend book commands or book. What the heck did it do? I'd recommend book commands or book command controller if you prefer the blah blah blah. Why this name? What are you talking about? What did you read? Oh, that's because I called it a class. Okay, let's start over. Names matter, ironically. Create a better clean code name for this method. What did it actually say about this though? Class, the name immediately tells the reader this is where book related commands live. And it's funny because it said it'd recommend book commands for this class, or recommend this go into something called book commands. And if you look at this, it's actually called book commands. So who's on point there? Me. Good job, you. I used to have a button that allows me to celebrate. I'm gonna keep this near now. Can you see this? Good job, you. I actually think there's something in OBS to do that for me, but anyway. What did it say about the method name? Looking at this method, addBook is actually a reasonable name for the CLI command entry point. The bigger problem is the method is doing too much. Okay, that's kind of what I was saying. So like, it is doing too much, so it's not only adding the book, it's saving it to the database and doing some more stuff. But that's a whole nother refactoring. I know I have a lot of methods that are doing too much, and when you talk about solid principles, the S single responsibility, I think, applies to this. So yeah, looking at the method, it's actually a reasonable name for CLI command entry point. The bigger problem is that it's doing too much, making any single name inadequate. That's the problem. So the real issue is it has an identity crisis. Access 3 different things. It's scanning, it's doing the multi-book scan, this other thing. No single name can honestly describe all 3 behaviors. So option A is to keep addBook and then refactor. Action B is rename to reflect the dispatch role, handle add command, or registerBook. registerBook. I kind of like that name. More DDD-aligned applies full ceremony. That's what I mean. It's a full ceremony. It's not just one thing. I'm going to go registerBook for now before I refactor. So once I refactor, this name is going to change again. It's going to change 3 different names probably. So you're calling both book facade, create new book, and yeah, I know that. Thanks, Claude. So that's the answer to that one. So instead of up here, addBook, let's just change this, rename it to more registerBook, and I do like registerBook better. And we learned something. So we didn't just say, hey, give me a name for this. We told Claude, hey, tell me why you named this, and it gave me a name, why it named it that. So it's more DDD-aligned, and it implies that full ceremony of adding to the system, and it gave good name. Like registerBook is pretty good name for that, instead of just addBook, which I was saying in the beginning, like addBook, when you look at it, it's doing more than just adding a book. But registerBook is a better name because it's okay, there's a lot that goes into registerBook, we'll just keep that. But I'll eventually, when I refactor, sure, addBook, and then do all of this fun stuff. What do you call that? Extracting. So I'd extract some code into its own methods. But anyway, the point was going through all of this. Not there. Here we go. Was the whole DTO thing, and I was trying to check to see if I was using DTOs like in a weird way for book commands. And let's see if any DTO. So we have DTO there, DTO there, DTO there, DTO there. But I think most of these are cool because they're going across outside the package. So it makes sense here for DTOs to, like, I wouldn't have a Bookcase DTO. I would have a Bookcase DTO, but I wouldn't have a Bookcase command DTO. But so I think everything is here is fine. These, but let's look inside of another one. Let's do a random one, author, and then do AuthorService. So AuthorService shouldn't have an author DTOs. Like, okay, why are you using AuthorService? Why are you using, well, you can use an author DTO to transfer it in a module, but you shouldn't use that yourself. So let's just look at all the place where we're using author DTO. We're using it here. So in this service here, it's returning an author DTO find by book ID. And so what that's doing is, first of all, pulling that set of author entities and then returning author DTO that maps to author entities. Okay, so who's using this? If you're using it yourself, that would be weird. So let's look at line 203. Who's using this? Book command's using it, so that's fine. Who else is using this? All right, I lost it. Go back. 203, 277. 277. Who's this? Book command using that? Oh, I can just see right here who's using it. So that's 4 uses, 3 there, 1 there. Book command and BookService is using it, so that's perfect. So book author isn't using its own DTO. It's the story that I was telling earlier. So book command or BookService. So book, it has a BookService and it's doing whatever BookService wants to do. BookService, and in this case, BookService wants to use an author for something. He wants to check out a book. So BookService wants to check out a book, and so it needs an author. So it needs authors because a book can have multiple authors. So it says, hey, I need an author DTO, and it's gonna call AuthorService. You should not be calling AuthorService, sir. Find by book ID. Okay, so you still use 256 AuthorService. Yeah, this is wrong. This guy should not be calling AuthorService like that. You can't do that, sir. You need to call AuthorFacade, and AuthorFacade isn't in there. So we need to create it. So private final AuthorFacade. I'm gonna put that in the constructor, and then down here where I clicked it twice, that's fine. So it has 4 usages now. Oh, it has 4 usages now. I think it had 5 before, I guess. So, oh, that's fine now, I believe. So it's using AuthorFacade. AuthorFacade has a find book by ID, which is implemented here. Okay, cool. And then book commands here, check in book, line 33 using AuthorFacade. Cool. So now when I go to BookService, it goes to 2 usages. And what are the 2 usages here? Book commands, check out book. BookService is fine. This AuthorService is an issue. It's this 4 here, and book commands, and it's searching by ISBN. There's this line. Does it tell you which line it is? It just goes to it. Oh, it does 203. Use AuthorFacade, so these are fine. They're using AuthorFacade, which is perfect. Cool. So it's not using it directly. So if it wants to check out a book, who's this? This is the book. Again, books is over here. It's saying, hey, I want to check out a book, but I need the authors. Can you give me some authors? And then it's like, okay, yeah, here's your AuthorFacade. BookService is going to call AuthorFacade. AuthorFacade should return a DTO and not an actual author. It's going to return a set of DTOs. But I guess that was my main concern. I was wondering if I was using DTOs right, because I thought at first I was transferring data objects within its own modules. And so I just wanted to check and make sure that that wasn't the case, because I was coding this while I was kind of tired last night. So that's what I'm going to do anyway. I'm going to continue going through here and just making sure that it isn't the case, but it looks good. So